Hey guys, Clay here at Havoc Off-Road. This is PSC's cylinder assist kit for your 2012 to 15 JK Unlimited, and I'm going to show you how to install it on your Jeep. So let's get started. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is remove this plastic cover from the top of our motor. We'll go ahead and remove these band clamps. There's a plug right here that we need to disconnect, and then we've got two 10mm bolts right here to remove, and then this should pop off. Now we've got some clips here on the air cleaner cap. Just remove those so we can remove the filter. Got a hose connected to the cap right here. It just slips off. We'll set this to the side. Now there's 3 clips that hold this box to the inner fender well, but I'm just going to stick a punch up in the center on the bottom of that clip, and then it seems to release it and they come right out. Most of these pulley tensioners are just spring activated. This one's got a damper on the bottom, so you need to release the tension on it slowly so you don't break anything. And then once we get that tension released, we'll remove the belt and fish it out of there. And we've gone ahead and put our ratchet strap on the brake pedal. It doesn't have to be crazy tight, just enough tension to hold the steering wheel straight. So as we take all our components off, we can center our steering box and assemble everything back in the right manner, and it should all work great. We'll remove our high pressure line with a line wrench. Remove the reservoir cap. That releases the vacuum. I'm going to let all that fluid drain out of everything. Remove the power steering pump inlet line from the reservoir. We'll remove the power steering pump and just keep removing items at this point before we get to installing parts. It's time to assemble the pump to the bracket. The bracket is going to bolt on the block just like that. So you're going to use 2 of the factory attaching holes. Got a little Loctite on there. It's still a 13mm. Now that we've got our pump off, mounted to the new bracket, we've got our reservoir out. The next thing I'm doing is just checking for tolerances, looking at the brackets they sent in the kit, make sure everything makes sense. And this bracket needs to be removed. Kit also comes with an assortment of fittings. You've got one that's a little bit past a 90-degree angle. That one is going to go on the power steering pump. There's one with maybe, I don't know, a 20-degree dive. That's going to go on the reservoir. What you're going to need to do is remove the factory pinch clamps from the feed hose, and we're going to reuse those on the hose that's included with the kit. Okay, those 2 threaded holes on the bottom of your reservoir are what attach to the bracket included with the kit. This bracket is going to sit right here and hold your reservoir right underneath your radiator cap. Go ahead and mount our power steering pump back to the block. Now, as soon as one starts to snug up, I'm going to go ahead and snug the rest of them up. Alright, now before I thread any of these fittings on, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of power steering fluid in there to help lube the threads so that when you tighten everything down you get a good secure tight fit. And I'm also going to put some power steering fluid on the barb so that when we slip the low pressure feed hose over this barb, it doesn't want to bind, and then we can just slip our clamps back over that. Before I tighten any of these down all the way, I'm going to install the reservoir, cut the hoses, make sure everything fits. Then I'll go back through and tighten everything. I don't want to do this twice. So we're going to need to use the factory bolt to put this bracket back on the Jeep. That's just a 10mm. We're going to go ahead and attach our pressure line from the pump to the steering box. Now you can see we've already pulled our pitman arm off. We're in the middle of doing an axle swap. The next thing we're going to need to do is remove the steering coupler. Now we need to go ahead and remove this bolt all the way, because after I loosened it up, there's a keyway on this and it'll slide right off. All right, these are 18 millimeter, just like the pressure line on the power steering pump. Alright, so now we need to fish our box out of there. I'm going to go ahead and pull these plastic trees out here. Another one there. And there's your steering box. It's time to go ahead and put our steering box from PSC that's ported for our cylinder assist back into our JK. Before I do that, we've already centered our steering wheel and we've put that strap on the steering wheel to the brake pedal to make sure the steering wheel stays in the right location. So we're going to go ahead and center this box and make sure that the box is centered so that when we put it in, we're not a whole turn off. Now just get a wrench and put it on this keyway, and it turns fairly easily, but you can just do it slow. You don't have to go extremely fast. You don't have any power in here, and you'll see this gear turn a little bit. You're going to turn it all the way to one side till it stops. Don't press hard on it. You'll feel it stop. Turn it all the way back around till it stops on the other way. Split the difference. Same thing as a steering wheel. We're 3 turns lock to lock on this. We've turned it back 1.5 rotations. I'm going to go ahead and put this steering box in our JK. I'm going to remove those plastic caps and then we'll reinstall the pressure and the return line back on the box. We've got our steering box back in place. We've got all our bolts torqued down. Got the coupler back on. We put a little Loctite on all this stuff. We've got our power steering fittings on. Everything's tightened down. Now we can move on to the cylinder side of this. So we just finished putting in our steering box, so it's easily to identify which line is the return line from the box to the reservoir. Now this is a lower pressure line too, so this one's pretty easy to cut. I've undone a couple of plastic clips in there, moved the line down without putting a kink in it. You don't want to put too much pressure on it. But when I cut this line, I want to do it with gravity helping us out. I want debris to fall out of the line. I don't want a little chip of this rubber to fall down in the line and then go up into our reservoir. So I'm going to cut it long, right past this bend on the line. And then this is what the barb fitting for the kit is for. We'll feed that barb fitting into this line and we'll hose clamp it, and then we'll feed the other end into our reservoir. So now that we've got our line cut, I've put a little bit of power steering fluid on this barb. I'm just going to push this in. Make sure you've got your band clamp already on the one side. Push it in pretty easy. And then I'm just going to measure where to cut this. I'm using a silver Sharpie, and anytime I do measurements like this, I don't want to pull it real tight. I'd rather cut some more out of it if I can, because you can see this angle is a little different from that one. You want things to flow. The more abrupt pinches or 90-degree angles you have in any of this hose, the worse things are. So I think I'm going to go right about there. And then I'll cut this with those dikes that we just used to cut the other hose, and then we'll go ahead and install our gravity feed hose from the reservoir to the pump. Now you can see I positioned both of these band clamps so that I can easily access them if I need to take it off from the inside. And you're just going to reuse the factory clamp on this side. Go ahead and put a little power steering fluid on that fitting. Slip it on there. We'll repeat that same process again with that gravity feed line. Silver Sharpie, marked it, factory clamps, cut the fit, power steering fluid on there so that you can fit it over the barb, and then we can move on to the ram. So I'm going to use the clamp that they set, or the clamp that they sent for attaching the ram to the tie rod, but I'm going to use the brackets that they sent, just one set of them, to attach the ram to the axle side. I'm going to grind some of this, all this powder coating off right here, and then we'll bring that back so you can see how that's going to attach. So what we'll do is take these 2 1/4-inch brackets that they've got, and I'll weld those in there. I'm going to attach our drag link. Now we've got a little power steering on the end of our high pressure hose. Remember, that's a left-hand thread. I'm going to go ahead and install one side, and then I'll fit that up to the steering box, and then I'll measure where I need to cut. And you're looking, you can see in there the hose is just about to bottom out, and then that's when we can go ahead and install this side of it. Same thing, put a little bit of power steering fluid on there. This hose is going to go all the way down this cone like it did on the other one. So I'm going to take my silver Sharpie, I'm going to give it a little bit of slack. Now this, you're going to have to cut with an angle grinder and a cutoff wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and install this fitting. We're going to repeat that same process on the other line to the ram, and then we can move on to the next step. So we've got our ram lines all hooked up, everything's plumbed, we got clearance between all of our linkage. We're at the point now where we're going to bleed the system. To bleed it properly, what we're going to do is fill up the reservoir, and we're going to turn it back and forth, lock to lock, motor off, no power. Let all the bubbles come up to the top of the reservoir and keep filling it up. As the system sucks in fluid, we're just going to keep filling it up until the bubbles quit coming up. Once all the air is out, this cylinder is working in conjunction with the rest of the steering. We'll center everything up, we'll put our clamp back on, then we'll turn it lock to lock and make all our final adjustments. The instructions say on the box that the line closest to the firewall is the line that's going to go to the driver's side. Our situation was the opposite. It actually broke the tack welds on our bracket. No big deal, we ground it down. That's why we didn't fully weld it in. That's the system. We have no leaks. Everything works great, and I couldn't be more impressed with how it went in. If you guys have any questions, just give us a call or visit us at havocoffroad.com. Thanks.